from Global Ocean. I'm the Projects and Education Coordinator. I work with the schools to arrange and deliver the workshops in the classroom, and I follow up the coordination with them afterwards. So our workshops typically run between 60 minutes and 2 hours, and they aim to inform the children about the topic of plastic pollution in the oceans with links to the national curriculum. We tend to try and keep the talk to a maximum of 25 minutes, although this is flexible depending on how well the children are interacting. We ask the children a series of questions throughout the presentation to engage them and interact with them and make them feel more comfortable to discuss the topics further. Some questions could be things like, have you been to the beach recently and did you see any litter? What kinds of plastic items did you use in your everyday lives? And I'm going to run through the presentation with you now, just in a way that I would do with the classroom, so that you can see what it would be like in a natural setting. Hi, I'm Sarah. I'm from a charity called Global Ocean. We're a marine conservation charity, and we aim to inform students like yourselves around the UK about the dangers of plastic pollution in our oceans. So what I'm here to do today is give you a little bit of a talk for about 20-25 minutes on this topic. And I want to see you all listening, because after that we're going to play a game of bingo and test your new knowledge. At the end we're going to have an eco-arts workshop, and we're going to creatively recycle all the plastic you've been collecting. Plastic pollution, or what we like to call plastic poison, is a huge problem all around the world. So there's 3 major things that it can do when it enters our oceans. It can damage habitats, it can harm the sea creatures that call the oceans their home, and it can ultimately affect us. So all around the world plastic pollution is on the rise. I have some numbers on this slide to show you exactly how much it's increasing. So in 2012, which was just 2 years ago, plastic created around the world was 32 million tonnes. I appreciate this is a big and hard number to understand, so instead can you think of 4 million double-decker buses, think how much they weigh, and then imagine that, because that's the amount that was created in just this 1 year. This number as well is increasing every single year by 4%, and one of the biggest offenders are the plastic bags. 500 billion of those are used and thrown away every single year around the world, and the UK contributes 8 billion plastic bags to landfill every single year. So this equals roughly 1 million bags being used every single minute around the world by people everywhere. And this is a really sad fact, because plastic is so useful and versatile in our daily lives. Who can think of a few items that they use in their everyday lives that are really useful and made out of plastic? So exactly, so some of the examples shown on this slide are your usual plastic bags, plastic bottles, but did you know that plastic is even contained in some of your clothing? And these plastic fibres in some of your polyester clothes, when they're washed, are washed out down the drains and into our seas. So this is a really big problem, and over half of everything plastic we use is thrown away after just one use. Now for me, I think that's a really big waste. So when this plastic leaves our hands, it can end up in a couple of different places. It can end up on our streets, a little bit can go to the recycling banks, a lot of it can go to landfill, and even more can end up in our oceans. There are 3 main ways that plastic reaches our oceans. Who can look at this picture and tell me those 3 ways? So number 1, plastic is washed out to our sea through our rivers and our drains. Number 2, it's blown from beaches and off of our streets. And number 3, although it's illegal now, it can also sometimes be thrown off of boats out at sea. And this picture here, this is a picture taken of a beach in Cornwall in the UK just a couple of years ago in 2010. And when this picture was taken, it was estimated there were 100,000 different pieces of plastic on this beach alone. And sadly now, plastic makes up 60% of all litter found on all the UK beaches. So this is a really big amount. So who would like to go to this beach and pick up all this litter that's other people's? Would you like to go for a picnic at this beach? I know that I wouldn't. So I think there are definitely ways that we can reduce our plastic footprint and stop pictures like this happening. And when pictures like this do happen with all this plastic over our beaches, in our rivers and thrown off boats, it can have devastating effects on the marine life that live in the oceans. So these are some pictures of the ways that it can harm the animals that live there. This turtle in the bottom corner, he's a really famous turtle called Peanut. And when Peanut was a baby, he crawled through one of the ring holders that's on the cans of pop that we buy. And he grew into this funny peanut shape. And what this means is that Peanut's spine is actually exposed, so he's really susceptible to predators and being hurt and knocked around by the waves. This bird in the top right corner, she's thinking she's nesting an egg when she's actually nesting a plastic ball. So her egg, unfortunately, has been abandoned somewhere. And this kind of thing can have devastating effects on populations. There are a few other really sad pictures here which shows you just how much our plastic pollution can hurt these animals. Another way that animals are harmed by plastic is when they eat it. So turtles often mistake plastic bags for jellyfish. You can look at this picture and can you see that it would be very difficult for a turtle to distinguish between a plastic bag and a jellyfish. They look very similar in murky water. And unfortunately, so many turtles die from eating plastic bags every single year. And they're not alone. Other animals such as whales, they filter feed, so when they're swimming through the oceans, they suck in all the plastic along with their favourite food, krill and fish. And it's sad, but a lot of whales die from starvation because the plastic blocks their intestines, or from choking. And sadly, every single year, members of 663 different species are harmed in these ways. And this includes 1 million seabirds that die from eating or getting tangled in plastic, and over 100,000 whales and dolphins too. So plastic pollution not only affects animals, it also affects us. And when plastic enters the ocean, it's not like natural substances like paper and wood. It doesn't break down easily. It can take sometimes up to 1,000 years to even start breaking down. Who can tell me what degrading is? Fantastic. So plastic, when it starts to degrade, never fully goes away. It breaks down into smaller and smaller pieces under the exposure of UV and salt water until it ends up in tiny, tiny forms, like this piece of plastic here. Plastic has become the size of a grain of sand, and this piece of plastic will never cease to exist. It will always exist in some shape or form. And when it enters into these tiny, tiny pieces, it can get into our food chain. Who wants to tell me what a food chain is? So this plastic that's in tiny fragments and the toxins that it's leached can get into the small fish. The small fish are eaten by the bigger fish are eaten by the bigger fish, and so on, so on, so on, until those big fish end up on our plates. And plastic poisons can have a lot of detrimental effects on human health, such as obesity and cancer. Now, it's not to say that people shouldn't eat fish, it's just to say that in the future this could cause problems for our food stocks. And so we should be doing something about it now. And this problem is actually global, it's not just existing in the UK. Because plastic floats, it travels thousands of miles across the world, and it ends up in these 5 places called gyres. Now, gyres are massive rotating currents, and the largest one is 6 times the size of the UK, in fact. And this is a floating garbage patch. But plastic's also found in other parts of the oceans, and a small whale was found recently off the coast of Spain, having washed up on the beach, unfortunately dead, with 17 kilograms of plastic in its stomach. And some of this plastic had come from UK supermarkets even. So this problem is so widespread, and it affects all the animals and people on the planet. So when you're about to use some piece of plastic, we want you to think about your oceans. So is only drink tap water if you can. We're very, very lucky in the UK that we can do this. And so when you're in the supermarket, instead of reaching for that bottle of plastic water, think about a fountain that you could use, or buy a refillable sports bottle. C, carry a canvas tote bag. How many of your parents, when they go to the supermarket, take a canvas bag with them? Or reuse some plastic bags, if you have to. E, encourage other people to do the same. So tell all your friends and family what you've learnt today. Put up posters around your school. Go and parade around your high street in costumes and make people aware of the plastic pollution problem. A is to artistically recycle your plastic. We're going to be doing a little bit of this later. Recycling and upcycling the plastic that you've brought in. Make a list of ways that you can use plastic creatively. Perhaps you could create a water can out of a milk bottle, or you can create something to hold your pencils in at school instead of buying a new pencil case. N is to notify your friends, family, local councils. So you can write a letter to your local MP or your local supermarket and tell people about the problem and encourage them to do something about it. S could be to start a recycling scheme. So if your school or your home doesn't already have one, then talk about it with your parents and teachers. Get a box in the classroom and start recycling your plastic. There are many ways that you can help to reduce your plastic footprint. How many of you think you could do 1 or 2 of these things? Fantastic. Okay, this brings the presentation to a close. We hope you found it informative. Please bear in mind that the facts used in this presentation were found in 2014 and so are subject to change. Please feel free then to use your own facts or highlight certain topics that you're currently teaching with your class. We hope that you can use this as a base for follow-on work or as a base to create your own adaptation of this presentation. Thank you very much for your time.